To illustrate this important disquisition, I conceive we must recur to the civil constitution of England, and from thence deduce and ascertain the rights and privileges of the people at the first establishment of the government, and discover the alterations that have been made in them from time to time. And it is from the laws of the kingdom, founded upon the principles of the law of nature, that we are to show the obligation every member of the state is under to pay obedience to its institutions. From these principles I shall endeavor to prove that the inhabitants of Britain, who have no vote in the election of members of Parliament, are not represented in that assembly, and yet that they owe obedience to the laws of Parliament, which as to them are constitutional and not arbitrary. As to the colonies, I shall consider them afterwards. Now it is a fact, as certain as history can make it, that the present civil constitution of England derives its original from those Saxons who, coming over to the assistance of the Britons in the time of their king Vortigern, made themselves masters of the kingdom, and established a form of government in it similar to that they had been accustomed to live under in their native country, as similar at least as the difference of their situation and circumstances would permit. This government, like that from whence they came, was founded upon principles of the most perfect liberty. The conquered lands were divided among the individuals in proportion to the rank they held in the nation, and every freeman, that is, every freeholder, was a member of their witenagemot, or parliament. The other part of the nation, or the non-proprietors of land, were of little estimation. They, as in Germany, were either slaves, mere hewers of wood and drawers of water, or freedmen, who, being of foreign extraction, had been manumitted by their masters, and were excluded from the high privilege of having a share in the administration of the commonwealth, unless they became proprietors of land, which they might obtain by purchase or donation, and in that case they had a right to sit with the freemen in the parliament or sovereign legislature of the state. How long this right of being personally present in the parliament continued, or when the custom of sending representatives to this great council of the nation was first introduced, cannot be determined with precision. But let the custom of the representation be introduced when it will, it is certain that every freeman, or, which was the same thing in the eye of the Constitution, every freeholder, had a right to vote at the election of members of Parliament, and therefore might be said with great propriety to be present in that assembly, either in his own person or by representation. This right of election in the freeholders is evident from the statute first, Henry V, chapter 1st, which limits the right of election to those freeholders only who are residents in the counties the day of the date of the writ of election. But yet every resident freeholder indiscriminately, let his freehold be ever so small, had a right to vote at the election of knights for his county, so that they were actually represented. And this right of election continued until it was taken away by the statute 8th Henry VI, chapter 7, from those freeholders who had not a clear freehold estate of 40 shillings by the year at the least. Now this statute was deprivative of the right of those freeholders who came within the description of it, but of what did it deprive them, if they were represented notwithstanding their right of election was taken from them? The mere act of voting was nothing, of no value, if they were represented as constitutionally without it as with it. But when by the fundamental principles of the Constitution they were to be considered as members of the legislature, and as such had a right to be present in person, or to send their procurators or attorneys, and by them to give their suffrage in the supreme council of the nation, this statute deprived them of an essential right, a right without which, by the ancient constitution of the state, all other liberties were but a species of bondage. As these freeholders then were deprived of their rights to substitute delegates to Parliament, they could not be represented, but were placed in the same condition with the non-proprietors of land, who were excluded by the original Constitution from having any share in the legislature, but who, notwithstanding such exclusion, are bound to pay obedience to the laws of Parliament, even if they should consist of 9/10 of the people of Britain. But then the obligation of these laws does not arise from their being virtually represented in Parliament, but from quite a different reason.